Thank you, and good evening, and welcome to the initial meeting of the Board of Directors, the new Board of Directors. Let's call the meeting to order, and before I do that, let me just announce that for those who may know of the demise of Ellen Graves but not be aware yet of her funeral arrangements, there will be a celebration of her life on April the 28th at 11 a.m. at United Christian Parish on North Shore Drive here in Reston. At this point in time, I would entertain a motion to adopt the meeting agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And the meeting agenda is adopted. I would also entertain a motion to approve the board minutes of the March 22nd, 2018 regular meeting, our last regular meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And the minutes of the, two abstentions. Sherry votes aye, and the March 22nd board minutes are approved. Okay, at this point in time, I would turn toward the members and ask if they have any member comment. Jeremy?
Hey, Sabrina.
Yeah, Sherry?
Ask her.
I can't hardly hear you guys at all.
Okay, we're hearing a bunch of background.
Yeah, ask her to mute her line.
Mute yourself unless you are going to say something, and then I'll turn us up and maybe pass the directors to Rob.
Jeremy, you've got 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Jeremy Novak. I live at 2005 Halyard Lane on Lake Thoreau. First, I would like to congratulate all of the returning members and the new members of the board. Secondly, I've spoken to this board many times about the lake policies. I'd like to thank the board for its creating of the Lake Working Committee to allow review and possible updating of lakes policies from this perspective of residents who live on the lake and boat on the lake. Today is April 11th. The reason the date is important is the deed, is Reston's deed, section 62B9, allows 2 boats to be moored behind the house of property from April 1st to October 31st each year. As stated in letters sent to me by registered mail by the Reston Association, members of the Covenants Committee visited my home on October 18th while it was still allowed, and October 18th, the Reston Association Covenants Committee found my property to be in violation of this deed. This date is important because on October 18th, the date of the said violation, as of this date, 2 boats were and are now completely illegal to have behind my house. Although I've attempted many times to appeal this error where my property was cited, and I've repeatedly not been allowed to. Since the Reston staff, Covenants Committee, Legal Committee will not correct this obvious error, I am appealing to the board to unequivocally and immediately vacate this citation. This is very important because I've received repeated letters from Reston staff threatening lawsuits, attorney's fees, $10 a day fine, liens on my property, as well as other harassment of me. Thank you very much for your immediate correction of this egregious violation of the homeowner's rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy. Are there any other members who wish to comment? Do we have any comments from board members at this juncture? If not, we will move on to the election of officers. And Sabrina, I wonder if you would be so kind as to advise us as to how that should take place?
Sure. In your meeting materials for this evening, you received a copy of Oregon Association Operations Resolution 2, election of officers, which delineates the process. Vice President Bobstein is going to chair the meeting until the president is elected, and there's almost a script here in your resolution that states how we're going to do it. But quickly, step by step. The chairman, whoever it may be for each of the offices, is going to call for nominations. Someone may make a nomination, that nomination needs to be seconded. Another nomination can be made, that would be seconded. When all the nominations are done, the chairman is going to ask for a motion to close the floor for nominations. That needs to be seconded and then voted on. And then any individuals who are nominated will have an opportunity to make a brief statement about their interest in the position. Then in your little envelopes, you have secret ballots. You'll be able to complete those. Tony will collect them, and he and I will go into the other room to tabulate, and Tony will come out and announce the results. We'll repeat that process for president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer.
Okay,
Do you have any questions?
Okay, if not, as chairman at this point, I would call for nominations for president.
I would like to nominate.
I would like, do I have the floor, David?
Yes?
I would like to nominate David.
I
would like to second David Bobzien.
I think I had,
Sorry,
that's
yeah.
all right.
Are there any other nominations for president? If not, is there, yes, Ken?
I thought you were saying something, Julie.
Oh, no, I was just seconding.
I'd like to nominate Andy Siegel.
Is there a second?
If there's not a second, the motion will fail for
Motion
lack of a
dies
second.
for lack of a second. Is there a motion, are there any other motions? If not, is there a motion to close?
Move to close.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Thank you, Sherry. That's recorded as an aye.
Aye.
Would you like to make a statement?
No.
All
What
right.
I'd like to do is to move on as quickly as possible.
All right,
That
you
was a
still have to
unanimous-
complete the ballots.
Okay.
I know it's a matter of
Unanimous consent, but okay.
Okay, we move on to vice president.
I'm so sorry, you have to
We have to
complete the
count.
ballot.
You?
We-
Okay.
yeah, we have to go through the motion.
Okay.
Don't forget to text Sherry.
Right.
The great computer you have back there is working.
Yeah, we put batteries in the calculator for them, especially.
Great.
So good.
And count higher than 9.
So who won?
We don't know
We
yet.
don't know yet.
Don't know yet.
The auditors are working on it, Sherry.
They're very expensive. We pay them by the minute.
Might I just say while we're waiting, what an awesome looking board you guys are.
Oh, you can see us, of course, yeah.
Very kind.
We're missing your female presence here, though.
Mr. Chairman, the
I
results,
get that.
Mr. Chairman, the results of the election for president fall to David Bobzien.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations,
Appreciate it.
David.
I will do my best to keep us on task and on time throughout the year.
We appreciate that.
Okay, now we turn to vice president. Are there nominations for vice president?
I'd like to make a nomination.
Go ahead, Sherry.
I'd like to nominate Sridhar.
Is there a second?
Second?
By John Mooney.
I would like to make a nomination of Andy Siegel.
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations? If not, would someone like to make a motion to close the nominations for
So
vice
moved.
president? And is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying
Aye.
aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. We have closed those, and I would ask first Sridhar if he would like to make a statement, and then Andy.
Sure, I have a very brief statement. I was appointed treasurer at a very important time for Reston Association. I have led the implementation of internal controls, policies, and procedures from a board perspective, fixing the problems that were identified through the Tetra report. I would like to now serve Reston Association in a different role as vice president, and I appreciate your support very much. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, Andy.
No problem. I was the VP for 2 years, in my second 2 years of my first term, 2011, 2014. So I know the job, and I feel I can hit the ground running with it. I feel I have institutional knowledge from that time that will be beneficial to help us both look forward and keep the policies of the past that make sense understood. For example, the Finance Resolution 3 that I worked long and hard on for the repair and replacement budget that we still use today. I spent a lot of time on that, and so I feel I was able to navigate both the technical aspects and the political aspects of getting that understood by the board and passed to make it usable. I'm very involved with our community. I have a lot of wonderful relationships in our community. Reston Historic Trust, Reston Corral, Southgate Community Center, South Lakes High School, PTSA. So I feel like I have a lot of outreach possibilities I have from those activities that I think will be beneficial for an officer. Also, the relationships I have already built with Supervisor Hudgens, Delegate Plum, and Senator Howell, that the relationships themselves don't have to be built. They're already there. So as we try and influence some of their decisions, that part of the work has already been done, the building of the relationships. And I believe I'm a bridge builder in general for my nature. And I think I can help us work better internally and also help our image externally as a efficient, productive working team. And I ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Okay, at this point in time, if you would like to cast your ballot, please do so, and Tony will pick it up.
She's struggling with that mute button.
Yeah. Bruce is stopping.
I believe the Red Sox are. This is the last bit I heard.
Mr. President, the successful candidate for the office of Vice President is Sridhar Ganesan.
Congratulations.
Vice President, and assisting Bob Zine in his duties and responsibilities. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, and we now turn to the election of secretary. And are there any nominations?
I have a nomination. I'd like to nominate John Mooney.
I second that nomination.
Are there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Julie.
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations? If not, is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The motion carries. The nominations for secretary are closed. And I will start first asking John Mooney if he'd like to make a brief statement.
I've been on the board 1 year and have gotten very involved in both the relationship with Fairfax County in terms of planning and zoning, and also internally in the development of a new code of ethics and the conflict of interest policy and statement. And I too like to promote the most understanding and the best fraternal and sororal dialogue possible. So that is, I try to listen very carefully, try to pick out what is good in anyone's position, and try to integrate it together. So I think I would be able to serve the board well in this position. Thank you.
Julie?
I think John and I are very similar in the approach that we take to the community and our give-backs. Certainly, you know, I served my first 3 years and had a fair number of votes in my first campaign, and certainly my second campaign as well. And I did that through community outreach, going out to see the people and talking to people, knocking on doors. I've always been a team builder in my professional career. I've got a broad background in terms of committees that I've served over the course of my years, and you all know me.
Yes, we do.
So,
Okay, at this point, if you could fill out your ballots, and then Tony Champ will collect them.
Mr. President, the successful candidate for the office of secretary is John Mooney.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. We now turn to the office of treasurer.
Mr. President,
Yes, Ben?
if I may say, that before we make a call for nominations, I would like to make a motion for a call of candidates for the position of treasurer.
I'll second that for discussion.
Okay. Let's discuss.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Could somebody repeat that?
Sherry, Ben, before going forward with a decision on treasurer, Ben Iyer has made a motion that's been seconded by Andy to have a call for candidates before we decide on a treasurer. And it's been seconded by Andy, and now we're in discussion.
What I would like,
Thank you.
so I'd like to add that, as we know, the treasurer position does not have to be that of a director on the board. And we have a CFO who is our acting CEO with terrific accounting and financial skills. And last year, when we wrote the job description of a treasurer, it was highly technical, almost to a point of not being able to find viable candidates. But I think we should look at how we are writing the job description, and I think we can come up with a reasonable job description for somebody with a reasonable background to take the output that Robert Wood provides and be able to understand the summary, and I think that would suffice for somebody to perform their duties sufficiently. And I think it would help the board to have an outside entity who has that kind of skills and is an RA member to be able to look at our financial, at the scene, at the financial environment that we are in, and be able to help, like we have had in the past in our history, where we have had treasurers who have not been members of the board.
Other comments?
My understanding is that, if I may,
Yes.
is that typically when we have somebody with financial qualifications within the board, they've often been the one that served as treasurer
Like you
in
have.
the past, like I have, exactly, like I have. And in the past, we've had situations where, we didn't have a financial expert, and so we went outside. And that was the case last year. The year before that, we had Danielle, who's a CPA, and so she was the treasurer. So I think historically, for a period of time, I think we've had outside members sitting in, but I thought if we do have somebody with financial qualifications, that officer is elected on the same day as the rest of the officers. Maybe Sabrina can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, historically, hasn't that been the case? Sabrina?
Historically, you have. Last year, for example, you did not.
Yeah,
So you
We
do not
tabled it,
have
right?
to.
which is why it was tabled for the next month and a call for candidates, right? Right.
Which you can do.
Yeah.
Which the board can do.
Okay.
And as I recollect, last year we did do the call for candidates because we wanted to see if there wasn't additional options, because our treasurer had resigned and was an officer. So there was discussion last year, as I remember, that there might be value in having a separate person as treasurer and having yet one more voice that could bring their thoughts and perhaps a bit more objectivity to the discipline of the treasurer's job. The degree of which the financial skills, I think also in the past, as I recall my years, there had not been until Danielle, someone who had the skills, and that's why we had John Higgins bring that to it.
Yep.
If, Sridhar, you have chosen to be vice president, I guess I'm sitting here thinking, do we have someone on the board that really can step up to that same standard that we had established for that position? I think that's where you were going. Was that right?
If I may add to that, that's in fact pretty much when Sridhar explained what happened last year, that we did not have the expertise on the board to serve as a treasurer. We went looking outside. And now that the treasurer has decided to move to the position of vice president, that indeed puts our board in the same position as we were last year to look for those skills outside. And if we are going to say that any of the high domain expertise that was possessed by our treasurer is not required in any other board member, then we might as well open it to an RA member who can provide another set of eyes to be able to look at our financial documents and provide perhaps a very objective input to some of the directions and decisions that we take.
I believe we do have people with such qualifications, so I would request that we go through the motion and then take the next step and see how it goes.
Well, you have a motion
Well,
on
we
the
have a
table.
motion on the floor, and is there any further discussion on the motion? Julie?
I was just reflecting again on what Van Ayer said, that when I was looking at the package for tonight, and included in it was descriptions of what we asked for the fiscal committee and the skills that the fiscal committee volunteers bring,
Yep.
that I would think that we're going to ask of those same kinds of skills, demonstrated skills in that
That's right.
area of whomever might be our treasurer, whether it's internal to the board or an outside call for a board. I don't know whether or not there's anyone in the community that would like to apply. That's kind of where we were last year in a number of our appointments, without being able to do a call for
David.
candidates.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, the motion is on the table to not go with an election tonight of a treasurer, but instead to issue a call for candidates. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
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 And the motion is defeated. And now we will accept nominations for the position of treasurer on the board of directors.
I have a nomination, Mr. President. I nominate Eric Carr.
I second it.
Okay? Sherry seconds it.
I would like to nominate Andy Siegel.
I'll second that.
Are there any other nominations? If not, is there a motion to close the nominations for treasurer?
So moved.
Is there a second? To close the nominations?
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The motion's
Aye.
closed. And I will first turn to Eric and then to Andy to make a statement.
Very briefly, previously in my career, I served as Chief Financial Officer for a 501c4 not-for-profit organization chartered in Virginia, roughly the same size and scope of the Restaurant Association. I served in that role for 5 years.
Andy?
Long career as executive in telecommunications, $750 million capital budget, millions operating budget. So I've worked with a lot of budgets. In specific history, was on the fiscal committee for 3 years here, also while serving as the board VP. Was instrumental in creating some policies and changed some resolutions that was a very effective change that we still use today. And so I believe I understand the role very well.
Okay, please move on to vote.
Yeah, okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah, May 24th meeting should be fine. Fair enough.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Successful candidate for the office of treasurer is Eric Carr.
Thank you. Okay, we now move on to the appointment of an assistant secretary, and I would entertain a motion that that assistant secretary be Sabrina Tadelli.
So moved.
Second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And Sabrina, you are the assistant secretary. Congratulations.
Thank
I
you.
think he meant sorry.
Exactly.
That's what it's code.
As you are all probably aware, Victoria White, who has done an incredible job as the Hunters Woods Dogwood representative on the RA board, has worked very tirelessly, especially on the governance committee, has worked on the whistleblower policy and some of the other issues, and a situation became available where she was able to purchase a single-family home. Unfortunately, it was not in the Hunters Woods Dogwood district. It is within Reston. She will continue to be a loyal RA member, but we are going to have to, her resignation was effective today, and we are going to have to replace her on the board. And I would suggest, and I would then entertain a motion, but my suggestion would be that we issue a call for candidates and try to have a selection made, if we do have candidates, at the next regular meeting of the board, which is May 24th. Is there any discussion, or maybe we should get a motion on the board to do that? On the, you move it, and is there a second? Is there any further discussion, or are we ready to go forward with a call for candidates? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Sherry?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Aye.
And we will issue that call for candidates in the Hunters Woods Dogwood District. And with that, we are ready to go into executive. And is there a motion to do that?
Motion to move into executive session?
Second?
Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And we will do that, and folks, we will be back as soon as possible.
Are we moving or they?
Turn off your mics, please.
Are we moving or are they moving?
Out of executive session, I would turn to Mr. Mooney to see if he has a cleansing motion.
I do, Mr. President. I move that the Reston Association Board of Directors certify, to the best of each member's knowledge, that only those matters appropriate for executive session of a personnel, contractual, or legal nature were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during executive session.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay, and we are out of executive session. And before we get back onto the agenda, which would be the Secretary's certificate at item E, I have the following statement to read. On March 28th, Fred Selden, Director of Fairfax County's Department of Planning and Zoning, sent a letter to Supervisor Hudgens giving county staff's responses to specific concerns raised by both the Reston Association and the Coalition for a Planned Reston about the county's proposed amendments to the Planned Residential Community, or PRC, zoning ordinance regulations. While we are pleased that Mr. Selden's letter offers several helpful suggestions, which we hope to explore further with the county, we are disappointed that the response inadequately addressed many key issues raised in our previous correspondence. In the current version of the PRC zoning amendments, county staff has proposed for the Board of Supervisors' consideration two primary changes in the PRC regulations. First, to raise the overall population cap on PRC zone parts of Reston from its current 13 persons per acre to as high as 16 persons per acre, allowing Reston's population to more than double. Second, in a high-density multifamily areas zone PRC, allow 50-plus dwelling units per acre, effectively leaving the upper limit to the County Board of Supervisors' discretion on a case-by-case basis. Many believe that such increases would create an unsustainable burden on Reston's infrastructure. Simply, we want to ensure adequate infrastructure to account for the increased growth, including, but not limited to, adequate schools, roads, parks, athletic fields, and natural areas while protecting the Reston vision. To move forward with that goal, over the past several months, RA has partnered with the Coalition for Planned Reston, CPR, to not only make the county aware of our concerns, but also to propose specific action items to be addressed prior to moving the amendment forward. Reston Association will continue to collaborate with CPR on appropriate responses to Mr. Selden's letter. Since Mr. Selden's letter at the April 6th meeting of Leadership Fairfax, Supervisor Hudgens stated concerning the PRC amendment, quote, "We will be moving forward, hopefully with better understanding," end quote. While Fairfax County has not announced its schedule of public hearings on the PRC amendment, it remains troubling that the totality of RA's concerns have not been addressed prior to moving forward. We urge all RA members to stay informed and involved on this issue. Please visit the RA website for more details on the proposed amendment. We encourage members to attend CPR's community meeting on the PRC issue starting at 7 p.m. on Monday, April 23rd, here in the Reston Association's Conference Center. The 900 people who CPR drew to Supervisor Hudgens' October 23rd meeting at South Lakes High School finally got the county's attention. Now, more than ever, we need to keep the county focused so we will indeed have a better understanding. Thank you. And now we turn to the Secretary's certificate. Sabrina?
All right, you have a motion in your packet with a few blanks, but now that you've elected officers, you can fill in the names there. The purpose of the Secretary's certificate is simply to authorize and empower your president and vice president to execute performance agreements, bonds, escrow agreements, etc., in the absence of the acting chief executive officer. So if you would make the motion, I have the blank Secretary's certificate for you to sign. It's a matter of business.
Yes. Do we need to read it
The motion?
as is, or can we say this?
We just make a motion to approve the execution of the Secretary's certificate? Is that what you need, a
Or you can
motion
maybe
from
read
me
it.
to do that?
Can you read the motion that's in your
I
packet
can.
with names?
Mr. President, I move to approve the Secretary's certificate as presented, which sets forth that President David Bobstein, Vice President Sridhar Ganesan, in the absence of the President, and Acting Chief Executive Officer Robert Wood, each being an officer of the corporation, collectively the officers, are authorized and empowered to execute and deliver performance agreements, bonds, escrow agreements, permit applications, deed, record plats, and other related documents which may be required by various governmental municipalities and agencies, period.
Is there a second? Second, Julie?
Second.
Thank you, guys.
Is there any discussion?
For you, Sabrina.
If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries.
It's okay after the meeting.
Yep.
Yep, absolutely. Anthony Champ, General Counsel, distribution of conflict of interest forms.
Mr. President and members of the board, this is the required conflict of interest statement, which has been adopted by the board. Please note that the board is currently working on a resolution for further review, which will be dealt with in the May meeting, which may require a second disclosure statement. However, at this time, this is the governing document. I ask that you review this. If you have any questions, feel free to consult with me and have it returned by the May meeting. Feel free to add documents as necessary to fully complete the required disclosures.
And that is the May full board meeting?
That's
Month of
correct.
May?
24.
Okay.
24?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Tony, appreciate that.
Bueno.
Robert Wood and Sabrina, board committee assignments.
Okay,
Oh, go for it. We go to the big board?
you had in your packets descriptions of each of the committees and the compositions of each of the committees. In the past several years, the way the board has handled board committee assignments is to have a discussion as a group of 9, or in this case 8 individuals, as to how you want to comprise these board committees and who you want to assign as the board liaison to some of your advisory committees. I have this spreadsheet here for you to use in your discussion. I would just recommend that you go straight down the list, and people who have interest in serving on the committees express that and identify. I have over here in green the total number that you should have on each one, and any notes that might be pertinent from your governing documents about who should serve specifically on each one. But I would leave it to David to facilitate a discussion amongst the 9, 8.
Is it your intent to first have us express interest across the board, each of us, by X's, or are you thinking priority? What is your thought? Because I remember one year we had it in advance, and we could kind of all check off and say.
In the past, you've kind of completed surveys, and it was left to the president to basically take your stated preferences and insert them into the matrix, and then send it back out to here are the assignments. More recently, it was a dialogue instead of a here it is.
So Sabrina, would your recommendation be we take each committee from board ops on down and then just go around the room and find out who's interested?
Yeah, there's merit to what Julie suggested, and it's if someone feels very strongly that they want to serve on one that's maybe halfway down, but they end up kind of on a whole bunch from the beginning, they may not have been able to state, well, my real preference was to be.
Well, why don't we do that? If you have and we'll go around the room, we'll start with Julie.
If anyone has a very strong preference that they want to share, I can note that, and then you can have your discussion.
So, if I'm following you, I think the way that I would be looking at, can you hear if I turn around? Okay. I would like to be on board ops, as I have in the past. That I've found that to be something that's in suiting to my interests.
Just gonna color in orange something you would strongly prefer.
Yes, I would like to continue with design review board, again, partially because of my landscape background and my interest in moving that forward. I see lakes, boats, docks as part of, where's Prac? Prac is way down?
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, there's Prac. And so for me, lakes, boats, docks is part of the Parks Recreation, kind of, they're related?
You're saying both?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Screen. Was the working group to be a part of this? No, right?
You generally assign someone from the board to the working group.
I'm not strongly attached to Lakes, Coats, whatever, but.
There's not a formal, actually, no,
You do have a board.
description you approved did have
Yeah.
board liaison, so you
Yeah.
should assign one.
Right, and just like, we don't have Hook Road up there, but
Right,
yet
that's
I
where I
know
was
that
going.
Sherry's been that.
Well,
Sherry's
She
been
would
doing
continue
that.
in that.
Want to leave Sherry on.
Yeah, I don't, I mean,
Yeah, there
I
would
don't
be
see
no
any
reason.
reason
Right.
to make a change like that, right?
I just
Yeah.
assumed.
Unless
Yeah.
Sherry
Yeah,
wants.
Sherry's still on?
She's on, I think, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you there?
I heard
But
her.
my assumption would be she would want to
Okay.
continue
Yeah,
that, yeah.
I'm here.
I've seen no
Okay.
benefit to not having her stay on it.
Oh,
You want me to go next?
Yeah, could you?
Oh, I forgot to tell you that I'm currently the Secretary of Public Art Reston.
Does that mean you have to be the RA representative?
I don't think that it does. I'm just telling you that, you know, I'm a dual role. or
Sherry?
So I do want to continue with the Hook Road group, that's going well. And then, I'd also like to be on the BOC. I found that super, I just enjoy being on that. I wouldn't mind being, and this is a cop-out, I wouldn't mind being on legal committee again.
Yay, Sherry.
Thank you.
10 minutes.
Noted.
Thank you.
Eric?
Same as this year, Bach, Fiscal, and EAC.
EAC?
Yeah, Environmental Advisory Committee.
Sridhar. The board governance, fiscal, and PRAC, Parks and Rec.
Mr. President?
Bach?
You don't have a choice on
He's, yeah.
Yeah, that's another choice.
And legal, and I'll continue with 55 plus, unless someone else would like to do it. Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
John?
I would like to continue with the Board Governance Committee. I would be happy to return to the Multimodal Transportation Committee. And because of, if the board will indulge this, because of my ongoing work with development and planning issues, I'd like to keep it with that because that informal work takes quite a bit of time. But if that's being a slacker,
No, I think that's.
Aren't we just saying our preferences right now anyway? So, I mean, it's someone,
It may elegantly work out that your
Yeah.
preferences work to these totals, but
We play to our expertise. I think that's the whole point of what we've done with the board, so. Yeah.
Andy?
I'd have interest in the Board Operations Committee and, again, going back to the Fiscal Committee.
For me, in fact, I strongly prefer to be in the BOC and the fiscal committee.
Let
And
me
we don't
just,
have anyone for covenants.
yeah,
Yeah,
let me
you
go
guys
ahead and take the ones that work out nicely here. Okay, so we just had one person, Eric wants this. You have two people on Parks and Rec.
Which we've done that before,
Yeah, it's
and
not
it's
that hard.
worked well.
Simple,
It's,
but
we've got a
fun.
lot to do.
Especially that.
I can do transportation or IPAR as well, if we don't have coverage.
Well, I'm double up, you know,
Yeah. There's a Julie serves.
You're already at the meeting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Frack,
I'm
I'd
gonna go ahead
love
and
to
X
do
the ones
double.
that are simple, we don't need to talk about it. If Julie's the only one who has said DRB, that. Did you just say you wanna put two people on PrAC?
We've done that before, and it's been good.
Okay.
I'd like to be on PRAC, just so we can organize some of these.
Well, because of what we
assets
have
that-
coming forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your financial with the demand analysis and stuff that we've talked about.
I think that's why I want to be on it, yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, let's go up here. You have to have the president and the treasurer. So
Right.
those two are fixed, and you're supposed to have two more. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4 who have expressed interest. How do you want to handle it?
Well, we had 5 last year, right?
That is.
We had 5,
that's
yeah.
in conflict with your resolution.
Right.
But you did it.
Oh,
I'm fine with Mr. President's picking two and be done with it.
I could, where's the 2 that have to be on governance?
Vice President and Secretary, so that would be, here we go.
Sridhar and
Yeah.
and Moon, right?
Really, 2 people who have expressed interest in BOC might consider switching over to board governance.
It's a Thursday night meeting?
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want.
Can meet, yeah.
Yeah, and it starts at 6
Have
o'clock.
them whenever we want.
Can't do a Thursday night meeting.
No,
I mean,
Well,
besides this meeting. I mean, once a
no,
month.
no, we can,
We can move governance.
it can, it's
Move to another
movable,
day.
it's
Yeah,
not
interesting.
fixed. Yeah, the governance committee can move around. I mean, you have to have it planned out, but you don't necessarily have to have it on a Thursday.
I'd be happy to switch over to governance as long as, but realizing that if you're planning other Thursday night meetings, I probably won't be here.
Thank you.
Great, good to have you.
I,
We'll be doing the code of ethics this year, hopefully finishing that, conflict of interest. Sure. Quite important things.
Between Julie, Sherry, and Ben, would any of you consider being on board governance instead of board operations?
We had 5 last year, right, so why not? Does it?
It's in violation.
Yeah,
of
we're
It's in
your-
violation.
of your own governing documents.
Yeah.
You can do it, but you.
Yeah. Okay, got it, yeah.
I have an affinity for our governing.
So
body.
Tony says you can't.
Yeah.
Unless you amend your resolution.
Yeah.
We might do, any director is welcome to come and attend any
Of course.
committee meetings. And David, of course, is ex officio to all of them, so.
Yeah.
It's not like it's a closed door where you can't come.
Should we come back to it? Should we move
yeah,
on?
let's
Okay.
keep going.
You need 4 on legal. You've only had 2 volunteer.
I can do it.
Sridhar.
Sridhar, would you do that? That's great, thank you.
Okay,
I'll-
one. Am I right? You
I'll-
need president and 3 other
Eric,
board
would you do
directors.
that?
I'll do it. Yep,
Thank you.
Eric said yes?
yep.
Okay. That's great. And fiscal, your resolution says the treasurer and 1 other board director.
That's a
So-
voting member of that committee.
And they are voting members.
Yes.
Everything in the top box, you're voting members.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to have Eric, because he's the treasurer, between Sridhar, Ben, and Andy. And I have this running total of committees down here, or
Right.
of how many you're serving on, if that influences your, like, we need to give Ben something here.
Well, I guess, not to speak for you, Andy, but having been fiscal before, I guess my support would be that you take that on again, between you and Eric, because Sridhar, you're already gonna be in the,
Yeah,
in the scheme of officers anyhow.
There's no minimum, but I'm just, to be fair and distribute the work, you probably don't want to have a director of 0.
Put me in the board governance as well.
Given given the changes we are going
Yes.
through, I want
Yes.
to be there for consistency.
Yeah.
Given this is a new committee that I pretty much,
But you've schooled him over the year.
Mm.
And remember, we just did the financial resolution, and part of the voting thing, you can't, you already are gonna be voting as vice president. And we put in that the fiscal liaison will be a voting member on the different financial levels.
yes.
Which is why I'm suggesting that it not be this, because then you'd have 4 rather than the 5, which was.
I was thinking more about
Still got 3.
guiding the discussion, but
Yeah.
that's, yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah, still gotta get 3.
guiding the discussion, that's what I was thinking. Because of my background and what I've
You have
done.
lots of people who want fiscal and DOC, you need to whittle it down, 4 on top and 2 over here.
I'm really happy that there is such an interest in fiscal. This is good. Yeah, it's good.
It's the place to be.
Didn't Ben
Yeah,
say he'd
it's a
go on
place to be,
covenant?
for sure.
We haven't touched covenants yet. Ben offered to be the fourth person on board governance, because we needed one still.
So you've got
Thank you, Ben.
governance.
Thank you, Ben, appreciate that.
That's good, Ben.
Well, then let's
Sherry and
go
Julie,
with
then
Sherry and
Bach.
Julie.
What are we looking
On
at?
Bach, Sherry and
All right,
Julie.
So you take
Right.
Van off of Bach and you put him on governance, right? Is that what I just heard
That's
you
what,
say?
that's
Yep.
what
No.
happened, yeah.
Oh,
No,
you
I
did- oh, you
want to
did say
still
that.
stay on Bach and
You can't do both.
fiscal,
Can't do both.
but,
Can do both, yeah. You
what
said
is
right?
that? Then take
Can
me
you do
off.
both?
I don't know. Maybe, let me check if you can't do both. I'm not sure if there's a mutually exclusive clause
I
in.
mean,
Oh.
there's 8 of us and there's 4 voting members on each one, so I don't know how we.
It would make sense just to distribute the work,
Yes.
Yeah.
to have 4 and 4, but I don't think that your resolution says that you can't have
Yeah.
someone serve on both. But I'm gonna check right now while you continue to discuss.
But then who doesn't have a vote? Unless somebody's not serving in either.
Because normally it's been split up in the
Right.
past.
Right.
But we had some board members who didn't serve on either.
That's true, yes.
So,
We had a couple, there was 0 occasionally
Right.
down there, which we don't like.
You wanna keep going for easy ones. You need
Sure.
someone to do covenants, and you need someone to do IPAR.
Julie is
Well, I'm
IFAR,
doing
if that's
it.
all right.
That's just,
She's already
she's already at the
a
meetings.
member of the organization.
She's already at the meetings.
Covenants, anybody?
then I'm going to give you my suggestion on covenants. It's always been a really good first role.
I will pass.
Is that a yes,
You
Ben?
really get to know the organization, you get to
You
know
don't want
the
to be
people.
on top?
Yeah. That's always a good tutorial.
How often, remind me, Robert, how often are the covenants meetings and when are they?
Monthly.
I know, remind me of the covenants meetings,
Monthly
how
on
often?
the second or third Wednesday, covenants committee.
Third Wednesday,
Third Wednesday of the month?
45 minutes to an hour.
I'm,
You don't have to do them all.
I'm happy to put myself forward, but I'm not taking myself off the fiscal list. You guys have to pull me off of it.
I know we had 3 members this year, but I know Mark Sanya didn't come to many of the meetings,
But it was in conflict with.
so it was in conflict.
Yeah, it should only, it really, I think then it becomes overwhelming for the advisory committee or that fiscal committee if there's that many. And you, Robert, you and I've expressed that to you before. I think that's too many board members. It's not really advising anymore, it's implementing.
Well, there's also, it leaves it subject to, if you're in conflict with your internal documents, it leaves it subject to
Right.
challenge.
Right.
Right. We have to
And we
fix
just
it
went
this
through
year.
that one and decided 2 was the right number of board members.
Well, I don't know if this is a basis for making your decision, if you want to favor people who have less. 'Cause do you really want someone to have 5 committees and someone to have 1?
I do not want the third column to have 5 committees.
I would
Strongly
be,
concur with that.
I would be willing to
Yeah.
serve on the covenants committee in the hope that when we get our 9th member, perhaps that member could take that.
You certainly can reassign once you do that individual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so temporarily, John is willing to
In
step into
keeping with
fiscal.
some of what we
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, I said, John, if you're happy to do it, I said I would be happy to do the covenants on that one.
Do we like to have 2 on the
No,
committee?
no, no. I'm just saying, if you're happy to do it, that's great. I had offered to do it, but
I
I'm
mean,
happy not to.
if Wednesdays are good for you,
Wednesdays are good for me.
I
You defer to
cede
him.
the honor.
So move it over to him.
Okay.
You're okay with that?
Yep.
It's a deal.
Done.
Who we add to the board.
Like I said, though, I'm not giving up.
So Sherry and Julie are on Bach, I know.
Well, I,
Good news and bad news for you, winner.
yeah. we
And you,
still
Anna.
need to resolve fiscal and BOC.
What's the resolution say on that?
On what?
BOC and Bach?
You mean the serving on both?
Yes.
It doesn't say that you can't serve on both. It just says composition. It says exactly what it says right here.
Right. You just wouldn't be a voting member. I mean, somebody, we have 5, it's not a voting person.
The
Oh,
question
so,
was, can you serve on both? And there's nothing in the document that says you can't serve on both.
You just wouldn't get a vote.
which is,
Get a
we
vote.
did.
You wouldn't get a vote,
we
because
did
there's
that.
4 voting positions.
So we did that wrong last year.
Right.
Oh, I see what you're saying. if there were
Right.
5 members.
Yeah.
We're trying to avoid there being a
Right.
conflict with
Somebody would,
documents.
right, somebody could show but not vote.
But not being, you
Right.
you could do rotating in the documents.
But then you'd have to kind of recharter it every,
Consistency.
every time. We'd have to reappoint.
Well, my only observation right now is you still have one person with one, so I think maybe then, what do you prefer more? Do you want to be on BOC or fiscal more?
But
I
everybody's got to be
strongly
on
wish to be
either,
considered for both of them.
everybody's got to be on either Bach or governance, because otherwise we don't have enough votes right now.
Well, I think it also makes sense for everyone to have something below the,
Right, no, but what I mean
First
is, to start with, everybody's got to be on either Bach or governance, or we don't have enough.
well, and you don't have an open, you should have an open column for the person you're missing.
That's the last one.
Yeah.
I guess you could assign them not knowing.
That'll actually,
Yeah. You weren't here, sorry, you got what's left. So is everything covered? Everything's,
No.
everything's,
No, we have,
still-
we have too many.
no, but everything is covered, but now we're just working on the ones that's
Yes,
over covered.
everything is covered.
Got it.
Yeah,
Just waiting for someone to say,
I suppose it's good problems to have. People want to be involved, yeah, so
well, I don't
look
know.
on the good side.
Mr. President, how do you suggest we resolve the strong interest in multiple committees?
Well, we have 4 on governance, right? So
Yeah, we're fine on
the other
governance.
4, the other 2 are
The
just
only-
on Bach.
It's
you
just
have
Bach,
fiscal and Bach.
fiscal and Bach.
I think the 2 that don't have either should go to Bach. Sherry.
Yeah, I'm siding with Julie and Sherry on Bach.
You're telling me to put it in?
Yeah,
That's good. All the ones down
Sure.
below are good?
Yeah.
All right.
You need to decide who your second director for fiscal is.
The fiscal liaison who also gets a vote when we have to do appropriation votes. Because they become the 5th voting member of that approval board.
That's not a big deal.
Well, we spent a whole lot of time on that resolution last one.
We've spent a lot of time to a lot of things that aren't big deals.
Point out, just for fairness, right now, you have 2 people who don't have any of their preferences. And I'm not really sure
Oh.
that's fair.
Oh, wow. How did that-
You have 2 people who didn't get any of their oranges.
And let me point out that these are newly appointed board directors who are not holding any position of officers.
Right.
And the board operations committee, the fiscal committee, these are all critical committees to be, because the board operations committee decides on agenda of the board meetings. Fiscal committee, we know why it is important. So I think it's important to equally share critical positions with newly appointed board members as well.
Well, I don't know, I suppose, David, since you're president, you could take those 2 that are in conflict and make a decision later and tell us what it is.
So I guess there would be a number of solutions. One would be someone voluntarily changed. The other would be we could draw lots, or the president could appoint, or we could change the resolution, which would throw the balance out of whack, it seems to me.
Was the resolutions
So what would that entail,
governing
changing
document,
the
isn't it?
resolution?
You amend your resolution, that,
Just normal vote?
right now, yeah.
Which cannot be done right now.
let me put Ben on fiscal committee.
Yeah.
Because they have not signed conflict of interest.
Sabrina, Den on fiscal.
Okay?
Does that do it?
I guess then, yeah, we'd be done. your four, let me clear out the ones, just so it's visually a little.
Then Andy's not on any that he preferred.
Yeah, that's true.
Taking one for the team again.
Thank you, Andy.
But now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, you're in compliance now with your governing documents. You just haven't.
Did,
Go ahead.
okay. No.
Move to accept?
I would be
Are-
happy if you
are-
wanted to take
are
on the
folks-
lakes.
Are
the-
folks
the
peaceful
boat
with this?
Working group.
All right.
Okay, if you are in fact peaceful with this, then you should make a motion to.
Someone move. Eric, do you want to make a motion?
So move. Move to accept this assignment list.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Thank you. Okay, item H, 2018 board calendar and 3-month look ahead.
All right, look that up.
You have this in your packet.
Mm-hmm.
Should've brought my laptop.
Yeah, I think,
Here, let me, here, I got it.
Do you have a copy?
Yeah.
you can go ahead since
You
you put it
guys want
together.
to look at
It's fine.
this together? So here, you use this, we'll use this, okay?
We'll have to gather.
You'll get one of these.
No, I just didn't, I don't know why.
So you have a very colorful calendar that shows meetings of several committees. It doesn't include advisory committees, but you have the board meetings, BOC, board governance, legal, covenants, fiscal, DRB. So now that you have your committee assignments, you can add those to your calendars. Do you have any questions on the calendar?
No, I understand.
So we are moving the fiscal committee meeting in April to the 20th. Is that right, Robert?
Yeah, the plan is to do that.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we get the financials out in time.
Yep.
Which
Friday
I
the
believe.
20th?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we get the financials out in time, so I will make that call
Okay.
early next week.
Okay. If
And
this
then see
doesn't
if
bind
there's
us to
any-
that,
Yeah.
then let's just, you decide if that works for you, and then that's what we'll do. Okay.
And Andy made very clear that his serving on the governance committee was contingent on us moving from Thursday, so Sridhar, we can work to
Yeah, we can
reschedule that.
Yep, sure.
I do have one question. I relied on the website for noting board meetings and scheduled events around that, and the RA website said that June the 21st was the board meeting rather than June the 28th. And I didn't, and it was clearly different, but I said to myself, well, maybe that's to allow for a longer 4th of July weekend. So
Isn't it the third
which is
Thursday?
it? Because unfortunately, I've signed on for a family reunion.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but anyway, that's my individual problem, but the RA website does say June the 21st, and I assumed
Yeah.
it was for something like that.
28th.
I'm going to pull up the calendar you approved back in December, so bear with me just a second.
The fourth Thursday is usually our
Yeah,
No.
no, it's typical.
I thought it was the third.
Yeah.
No, it's the fourth.
four, but I don't know why that would be the.
If it's just a private problem, I will deal with the private problem, but at least on the website, that's what I encountered.
Yeah, there's an error on the website. The calendar you approved in December included June 28th as your meeting, and I have made a note to correct to get the website corrected.
It's the 28th, okay.
Sorry about that, John.
That's okay. I'll join by phone.
The 28th, or the, which one's worse for you?
It's, no.
Doesn't matter.
I mean, 21st works for me, but that's a private issue.
Any other questions on the calendar?
It's lovely.
It's very colorful.
Nice colors.
Okay, so something of a little more substance. The list that you got in your board packets of items for your consideration in the next 3 months, 6 of you have been on the board, 2 of you are new. We wanted for everyone to just lay out some of the things that you can expect to see on your agendas in the May, June, and July meetings. Some of these will be news to you now, some not, because you've been working hard on them behind the scenes. I'm just going to go, Robert and I are going to tag team this, and we're going to go down the list. Number 1, because this is the most time sensitive, Virginia state requirements related to our camps licensing have changed, and now all board directors are required to be fingerprinted and background checked in order for us to get our license for camps. You're going to be getting an email from Melissa with Human Resources with instructions on what to do, and it needs to be done by the end of April.
Got it.
Okay.
Bless you, Mike.
2, CEO search, Robert.
So CEO search, I believe Sherry sent through a job description after a few of the board members took a look at that, and that went through to Melissa. Melissa summarized it. I believe it was pretty in-depth. It was 4 pages. Melissa has summarized that, and I believe that has been approved by a few of the board members, and then it has ended up on our website. This is happening the last couple of days on our website, Indeed, and then there was one other place. I can't remember.
ASA.
That's it.
Could those of us now, could we see the one that's been circulated? Could you send that to us all?
Sure.
It's on the website too.
It's on the website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's already
I'll point you
posted.
to the direction. Yeah.
Thanks.
Forward the evening. I'll let Robert keep going here.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so number 3, amendments to boards and associations operations, resolution 6, conflict of interest policy. John and David have been working on this on the board governance committee. There's a plan to have another working session later this month. We believe that we're around about 95% done with the conflict of interest policy, and then we'll go through the next phases. Do you want to add anything?
95% done for community comment.
Yes, right. Yeah. Likewise, amendments to board and association operations, resolution 5, board staff relationship. On the board governance committee, John has put up a bit of a matrix on what questions should be asked, and we've compared what gets done in similar organizations. And that is, the plan is to have final tweaks to that. If I remember, I haven't seen anything come through, but then that goes through to the first BOC meeting.
Right. So we are awaiting some comments that were promised on it. So basically, we did a matrix for the CEO and a matrix for the board relationship to the CEO and to staff, and one on the relationship of the board to the general counsel, which were the 2 things that we had discussed, we had identified in the current form of the resolution. And much as we did with the conflict of interest statement, rather than try to draft something, we thought it would be better to structure questions to discuss so that we would discuss the issues. So we looked at Fairfax County, Arlington. We looked at Ken Chadwick gave us what most similar community interest organizations do, and we also have our current form. So it generates some questions for discussion before we try to sit down and do text. And that should be ready.
Oh, yeah.
In the next, there's no reason it can't be ready by the next week.
Okay, good. All right, amendments to committee, resolution 4, board committees. This is specifically focused on the fiscal committee. At the last fiscal committee meeting, the fiscal committee went through and it basically had a work session on that, and we've got something that is ready to be forwarded through to BOC, and then go from there.
Okay, number 6, amendments to the elections and referenda resolutions collectively. As you know, each year after the election cycle, the Elections Committee comes and gives a report to the board, kind of like a post-mortem report. And they usually recommend various amendments to the resolutions based on any lessons learned from that cycle. This year, I think there are a lot of lessons learned, and I'm hopeful that the candidates and the board would provide any feedback they have to the Elections Committee on things that could have been done differently, just procedurally or in our policies, so that they can take that into consideration and incorporate those changes into the resolutions that they present to you, probably in May or June. Their first meeting to talk about this is next Tuesday. Hook Road Working Group was formed to provide the RA Board with recommendations for enhancements to the Hook Road Recreation Area. The group was formed last fall and has been meeting with leadership from the Capital Projects team. My understanding is the group currently has a concept plan for the site that they've developed with Dewberry, the engineering firm, and they still need at least one more meeting before they're ready to present that concept plan to the BOC, but that'll be coming to the BOC first stop in June, hopefully. Sherry, did you want to add anything to that or anything I missed?
No, you covered it. They have a little bit more work to do before they're ready to come.
Okay. Lakes, Docks, and Boats. The board just formed this working group at its last meeting. We are currently accepting applications. I have received several, and I expect that we're going to receive more because I know that it's being highlighted in this week's RA News, the e-newsletter. So you're getting a lot of interest in that working group. The BOC will be doing interviews for appointment in May, early May, and the proposed timeline that the board approved for this working group has the group coming back to the board by November 2018 to present its recommendations. 2018 listening tour dates. Last year, the board of directors did what we called a listening tour. You kind of took the show on the road and went out into the community, into each of the districts, and just held forums and gathered member input. And we think that you should do that again. And staff is seeking your guidance on timing for that. And hopefully that's something, I don't know if Mike wants to pop up, if that's something that we can take your temperature on tonight, assuming you're still interested in doing these. When would you like to do them? I know Mike feels we should try to set them at the same time every year so people know they're coming.
Yeah, last year we did them, I think we started the last 2 weeks of May and ran them into June with the hope of getting them done before summer break came with schools, so we pretty much squeezed them in. If the board's desire is to have them consistently at the same time of the year, that would be the same time this year that we did it last year, or we could defer them and do them in the fall. The original thought last year was that it would be a good opportunity, especially for new board members, to get some feedback from members in the community, how they were feeling about their districts or at large in general. So at this point, if we really want to schedule the dates, especially for May and June, we need to kind of agree that we want to do that, because then we have to line up the locations in each district.
Since last year, South Lakes was the first district that we did, and we were not in an election year. And this year, we've done predominantly member at large, and we kind of didn't get to those general sessions, right? We did districts, and then we did general sessions. Perhaps this year, since I know that there's been a lot of touching of South Lakes District in the last 6 weeks.
I'm going to start there.
Could we not start there?
Don't start there.
Would be my recommendation, is I think I have pretty fresh knowledge. So I'd kind of like to hear from the greater population or other districts that would not have had an election year. Does that make sense to you?
It does, actually, yeah.
And then what we did last year is it's difficult to find a common night across the week where there really aren't a lot of committee or board meetings, with the fewest basically conflicts with board schedules. So Wednesday nights were typically the best night cleared through the calendar. I think there might have been one conflict when I was looking at it with legal committee on a Wednesday night, but other than that, I think most of those dates were clear.
I think last year when we had these sessions, I'm trying to recollect, I thought we said that we'll be having these sessions every quarter with them.
We were looking at different options. I know we talked about
Yeah,
coming back
we
towards the end of
talked
the
about
year.
them. We didn't really land there. And then after the spring one, we had talked about maybe doing them twice a year. They are time consuming. If it's the desire of the board to do them on a quarterly basis, we certainly can do them that way. But to find, by the time we finish 4 and a quarter, you're kind of rolling into the next quarter. It makes scheduling challenging, but if that's what the board wants to do, we can certainly do that.
I do think that if you're making them in each district, we need to strongly encourage that that the members at large participate and, that it not just be a district, because we kind of lost momentum then when we tried to do a more general session.
Could I just make a recommendation that perhaps we can try to build on? I wanted to see if we can open up more two-way communications with the members, not just in these member input sessions, but perhaps as part of our monthly board meeting when members as such come, and we have probably the best attendance in board meetings of all RA events, that when they come in, because they come in with different concerns, and one of the most common complaints I heard on the campaign trail is that we are not responsive to them, which I agree that I've been there presenting my position on something and often not hearing anything back from the board, either right when I'm there or through email or phone later on. So if we are saying that member comments is a 20-minute period, I think most meetings we don't consume the 20-minute period. So once member comments are done, to open up two-way communications between the board and the members to be able to use that time in order to respond to their concerns.
Yep. Last year, we went out and we had a very specific structure that was guided by, at the time, the Community Engagement Advisory Committee. Previous to last year, typically it was my understanding was it was a brief update from the district director. It could have been a capital projects update, essentially what's going on in the district, and then it was all open Q&A. So that it really gave members an opportunity to do that. We could certainly go back to that format again and use that full period, essentially, for just interaction.
And it might
have
be
no formal part of the program.
Well, and part of what we were trying to drive last year was getting a better sense of where did people want money to be spent. And so perhaps instead of a guided discussion on that, maybe at the end of the meeting, because we also talked last year about creating a survey that we didn't end up sending out, right? I mean, I don't remember ever seeing a formal survey being completed. So maybe what we want to do is have people do a survey at the end, or they walk away with a survey to send in or complete, so that we still get feedback on budget, but we're also more of a listening mode, or more of a receiving mode than a telling mode.
That sounds good.
Then does that
Yeah,
address
so
your-
I guess, is the feeling that you'd like to do that in the spring, or would you like to defer that to maybe the early fall?
What about, by fall, I mean, we're gonna have a couple things queued up for the membership that they can kind of sink their teeth into. It might be a more substantive conversation at that point. I mean, because we're gonna be talking
Early,
about capital,
right
we'll
before we
have
have
done
to really
capital,
do the budget
we'll
stuff.
have done capital projects, we'll have done some programmatic stuff.
Budgets, yep.
Some of the resolutions and stuff like that, and then we're gonna talk about, whether we wanna have amendments to the deed, within the next year to clean up a couple
Have some
of hanging
sense.
things. We might be able to roll out, we'll be able to talk to them like, hey,
this is, we want to hear from you on these
And get
issues.
specific
Yeah, are we headed in
feedback
the
on
right
an issue.
direction?
Right,
This is kind
right.
of where we've
Right.
righted our ship. Should
Right.
we go forward with these?
Yeah.
I like it too, then they've had a summer of camps, they've had a
Right.
summer of pool hours, they've
Right.
had, so.
Exactly.
what
Yeah,
did-
I
does
say
that- Did it
September.
fit, did it work for you, did it not? You can let us know in the early autumn, I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So why don't we do this? We'll come back at the May meeting with some proposed dates
Yeah.
for late
Perfect.
September,
Yep.
once school's back in session and activities are rolling again.
too. Good, yeah.
And give you some maybe rough structure
That'll be good, Mike.
would look like.
Good. Okay.
Yep, thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Great, that was productive.
Right, so budget update. As mentioned earlier, plan there is to get out the financials this coming week, which would include actuals to 3-month projections as such, or 3-month budget, and see the variance over there. So the plan there is to get that out this coming week for the fiscal committee meeting. I will send a copy to the rest of the board members for your information. We had a session this afternoon that actually went through some of the budget work, and I think it was pretty informative. I think you guys enjoyed that. Maybe that's what sparked all the interest with the fiscal committee. But yeah, that's the plan there.
Okay. Is that it?
There's just
Oh,
two
one more.
more little
Two more.
ones. This is an FYI, I think you're gonna be seeing this soon. Some of you may know the storms that we had recently resulted in some pretty serious damage to the Glade tennis courts.
Yep.
We had planned to have North Hills redone.
Yep.
Staff is going to recommend that you switch those North Hills and Glade, because to rehabilitate Glade with, it doesn't make sense, you need to switch them. If you have any specific questions about that, Larry is here and he can tell you more. But that's gonna be a change to your capital project list, and we need to approve
We're
you to
fine
do
with
that.
that.
Choice.
Yeah, I think we have to.
Basically, a delay to have North Hills available.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
got
My
a
understanding
big tree in the tennis court.
North Hills just has water problem,
Right.
right? We can live with it. The courts are playable, Glade is not.
Okay.
Courts are not playable when the big trees are on
Right,
them.
Glade is not playable, right. Yeah.
Although they were taken out today. The cranes were there. I saw them.
But we'll
Do you
have
know,
to fix
did
them.
it puncture the membrane?
That's what he said it did. Larry said it did.
We're fairly certain that it did.
It did. Yeah.
Yeah. Goody.
And the last-
Yeah, I don't have much to say on the last one. I know you guys are brought up to speed on this.
Yep.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I just want to make a quick comment. Tony's, we forgot to really kind of welcome Tony right at the beginning of the meeting, but Tony, welcome, and it's been
Welcome,
good.
Tony.
Welcome, Tony.
Done a great job.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
I think he's hit the ground running for the first 2 weeks, and everything's going along so far so good. So it's been
Great.
great working with you.
Good to have you here.
Welcome aboard.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. We are adjourned, and thank you very much for a very productive initial meeting.
Thank you,
Only
David.
5 minutes
Thank you,
late.
David.
Only 5 minutes. Happy trip.